How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. And back in 1987, Capcom gave the world Street Fighter. Now, let's be honest here. The original Street Fighter was not a great video game, but you could see immense potential there. They took that concept and wanted to grow it into a sequel. That sequel was originally called Street Fighter 89. It was completely different from the game that we know as Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 89 ended up becoming Final Fight, a beat-em up of legendary proportions. It's one of the greatest beat-em ups of all time. It's one of those things that sits next to Double Dragon, River City Ransom, and Streets of Rage at the top of the mountain for that genre video game. Now, Street Fighter got its sequel, and that sequel became legendary. Final Fight ended up with 2 Super Nintendo sequels, a forgettable PS2 sequel, and then it kind of faded away. But those characters and that world at large got reabsorbed into the larger Street Fighter universe. And Final Fight, they spawned ports for everything, even the Super Nintendo. It was a launch title for the Super NES. But when it was time to move this game to the NES, they decided to go a little bit different. The results are one of the most creative things that Capcom ever did on the NES. It's also one of the rarer things that Capcom did on the NES. Today, we'll be talking about Mighty Final Fight. Now, Mighty Final Fight is really cool. It's the same story as the arcade title, but it spins a few things. There are only 5 levels. They're a bit longer than the arcade levels, if I remember correctly. The gameplay features a leveling system, not unlike the NES port of Double Dragon, where the more enemies you beat up, more experience points you gather, and every so many experience points, you go up a level. Your attacks become stronger, things like that. You can still select between Guy, Cody, and Hager. They all play a little bit differently, and they all have specialties. Hager, his grapple moves are supreme. He's not as fast as Guy and Cody. Cody is sufficient with knives and weapons and whatnot. Guy is insanely fast. He doesn't do as much damage as the other 2, but he's very, very fast. And pretty much everything flows the way arcade and console ports of original Final Fight worked. Like I said, this game is fantastic. It's one of the better interpretations of Final Fight on a home console until the Capcom Classics collection on PS2, or before that. Let's rewind, let's put some respect on it. The Sega CD port of Final Fight was arcade perfect except for the loading times. In my opinion, it was, up until Capcom Classics, the best port of Final Fight. Now, again, this game plays like everything is Final Fight except for the art style. It uses like a little almost chibi art style, kind of like a mix between River City Ransom and Final Fight. So the characters are a little more squished down, heads are a little bit bigger, but the gameplay is strikingly similar. and it makes for a lot of fun. There are some fun little touches in there, like Hager initially blaming Cody for Jessica's disappearance, stuff like that. Belger, the leader of the Mad Gear gang, talking about how he's fallen in love with the most beautiful woman in Metro City. Turns out that the most beautiful girl in Metro City is Jessica, the mayor's daughter. All this stuff combines, put it in a blender, with NES charm and the fact that, much like Natsume, on the NES, on very rare occasions, with the exception of a few things, Capcom didn't miss. This game is fantastic. One of the best things on the console. But because it came out in like 1992, 93, something like that, also one of the more obscure titles on the NES. If you want to find a copy of this, be prepared to pay. I'm not even sure how much a copy of Mighty Final Fight goes for nowadays, but I do know that Capcom Classics Mini Mix on the Game Boy Advance has a pretty spot-on port of it available. So whatever you gotta do, track down a copy of Mighty Final Fight. It's worth your time and your effort. This has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow, a little blue guy uses his brain instead of brawn to save his girl. Yeah, I know it's cliche, but it worked the last time, so it should work this time, right?